Here at the EV Reality Check booth, this is all about talking to people from the industry that are making the industry happen. We say it's the reality check booth because, hey, there's a lot of things out there that are, maybe not so accurate. And if you have questions, we're here to answer those. And that includes bringing in people from the industry that are making that happen, creating solutions that are giving people comfort in buying cars, understanding how EVs work. And that's what this space is all about, is just being a resource for those who are at the show and hearing what we do. My voice is from, well, Matt Teske. I like that third person thing. I'm the CEO and founder of Chargeway. If you are shopping for an EV, download the Chargeway mobile app. If you own an EV, download it. It's like Sesame Street for charging. It makes it super simple to understand how EV charging works for any EV on the market. Give it a download today. And in every city, I'm joined by a co-host here at the EV Reality Check, and this time it's Dan O'Shea.
Hi, Matt. Dan O'Shea here. Very happy to be here. I'm a Seattle area resident and an EV charging consultant, and I've been driving an EV since 2010. And I'm super excited to talk to Scott here about his product and service, and very happy to be here with Matt.
There you go. And so Scott Case, so the gentleman to my right who has some of the coolest glasses in the industry, you guys are doing some cool stuff. So you are the co-founder of Recurrent, and Recurrent is really all about, is this battery healthy in this car, and can I trust that this car is going to take me the distance I want to have it drive me? All those little things that kind of come up in the back of your mind of like, how's this technology working under the skin? You guys have a platform that really adds transparency to how EVs are working.
Yeah, so I started the company 5 years ago with the thought in mind that people are just asking these questions about used electric vehicles that they never did for used combustion engine cars. It's how far does it go? How worn down is the battery? And then more things like how far does it go in the winter? How fast does it charge? Like all these just a different set of questions. And we saw dealers were just like completely unprepared to answer those questions. And we started on the used side because there was like this just I don't know, butt-clenching concern about you told me not to use bad words, but that's okay.
Butt-clenching concern. But that is a great descriptor.
about how worn down the battery is, because everybody's had an iPhone, a series of iPhones, and they understand that over time you can't talk all day all of a sudden, right? And so we thought, well, let's do that for used EVs, and we kind of turn ourselves into the Carfax for EVs, right? And that our thought was, if we can facilitate the used market, that is so important for the new market to kind of have better residuals and just frankly, the manufacturers, lean in more if they know there's a good residual. So it's just kind of this whole ecosystem needed a company like us to come along and really invest way ahead of the market.
And kind of at a super high level, what you're describing is, at the end of the day, if someone buys an EV today, they drive it for 3 to 5 years, they decide to trade it in, the person who buys that EV next is going to want to know that original EPA-rated range may have been, let's say, 300 miles. They're going to want to know, can it still do that? And if the battery has maybe been used a ton, the car's got, 400,000 miles on it, your guys' solution will tell them, again, with transparency, here's what you can really stand to see on the maximum charge for range.
That's right. And I will say, when we started the company, we had this thought, okay, the batteries are wearing down, they're just like iPhones with wheels, and so we're going to go and not prove that, but we're going to help people figure out, which batteries are doing better than others. So now we are here 5 years later with data on, 50,000 different battery electric and plug-in hybrid cars, just from the community, just from regular people driving. We've seen 5 years worth of longitudinal data on, driving and charging, and so we can really see, hey, how are they holding up? And what I will say is, the one thing I take away, we started the company thinking we're going to figure out, help people figure out battery degradation. I will say that, I was wrong in thinking that there was a lot of battery degradation, on a lot of these cars.
These batteries hold up.
That was a big thing. No, I can sit here today, 5 years later, and go, you know what? We were wrong when we started the company. We thought there was a thing to uncover here that where the manufacturers were hiding it or something like that. And that is, by and large, in the vast majority of the cases, batteries are holding up very, very well.
Well, and the modern batteries that are being produced and in cars as of right now, the advancements we've seen in a decade are very real. I think if we rewind 10 years and we think about some of the first EVs on the road, like the Nissan Leaf when it first came out, that was, again, the first real, viable EV for the market. But the original one only had about 70 miles of range. But the battery tech back then it used the air, is what's called passive, energy management and thermal management. It just used the temperature around it to keep the battery where it needed to be. Whereas modern batteries, these are thermal managed inside. They've got liquid that keeps the battery temperature where it needs to be. These are things that people don't understand or know about. But to your point, it's like what have you proven in the last 5 years is modern battery tech really has longevity.
Yeah, and now that doesn't always mean they're going to get the same range as what their EPA is.
Sure.
But they also don't not every car gets its EPA range right out the door of the dealership. So some get worse, some get better.
Some get more, yeah.
Yeah, some get better. I was walking around I'll sort of call out Kia in particular for being pretty conservative with their range testing. Nearly every Kia in the Recurrent community gets better than its EPA range.
Well, let's talk
right out the gates, and even a year or two later.
Let's talk about the Recurrent community. So you have a community of drivers that can use the Recurrent platform. Correct. So if I'm an EV driver and I want to be a part of the Recurrent community, how does that work?
Come to recurrentauto.com and you can sign up your car. It's free for consumers, and you basically agree to share battery data with us from your vehicles, like the kind of manufacturer's API, the same thing that connects to their iPhone app, right? And so we get to see your battery state of charge, your range estimate, your odometer, and if it's plugged in and charging, like kind of what the charge rate is. That's all, right? We don't know where your car is.
Right.
If you thought about that, that permission exists, but we were like, we don't need it to do what we're doing, which is like basically just like asking again and again and again over the years to figure out what your individual car is doing from range, what it does in different weather conditions, and then aggregate that up to these big, machine learning models that sort of say like, okay, every Model Y 2020 long range, how is it doing in aggregate? And then we can sort of find ones that are maybe a little bit better,
outliers,
a little bit worse. Yeah, the outliers from that. Yeah.
I can give you like a real world example because I just bought 2 used EVs over the last year and a half, and one was a Leaf, and it was an earlier model, but not the 70-mile ones, and so we had to figure out, and we've been driving EVs for a long time, so we know how far this car is going to drive every day, but how far could it go if it needed to? Because there are some drives that we take. And it was kind of a guesswork. It was a lot of Google searching on what people are saying, watching YouTube videos, because the dealer doesn't know, isn't going to tell you. You have to make a guess. And on that car, we did, and it's been great. And on the ID4, I will actually say that the range has stayed the same or gotten better, actually, over the last year and a half.
Yeah. Well, and what I will say is like the way that most people would experience, if you're a car shopper, if you're shopping for a used or new EV at this point, where you will encounter Recurrent is on the car dealer's website, right? So if you go to CarMax and you look to search for any used EVs, if you go to, there's lots and lots of independent EV specialists, like used EV specialists all over the country. You'll see Recurrent data directly in their website on the car's listing, and it answers those questions. How far can the car go today? How does that compare to when it was new? How does it change in the dead of winter for where I live? And so the same car can perform differently in our pretty mild like Pacific Northwest winters.
Today's a great day for driving an EV.
Yeah, versus the really extreme heat in South Texas in the summer versus the
Yukon territory or something.
And so we now have enough data that we can sort of take any individual vehicle and say like essentially simulate like how would this car do in northern Maine or in Phoenix, Arizona. And then answer those questions that honestly, like what I've realized is like the manufacturers don't even always know this. Like,
well, I think they're learning as they go, kind of, for how this technology can be presented to the public.
For sure, yeah. And I will also say that sometimes the dealers don't know what the manufacturers do. So I had a great example of talking to, I won't name the company here, but like talk to the dealer network of one of the pretty like major manufacturers, and I did say it has a dealer network, so it's not Tesla. And we were like, your cars like are doing incredible in the winter. Like they lose the least range of just about anything in our whole data set, right? And they were like, they do?
Great piece to say. I can use it as a selling point.
Wait, can we use that as a selling point? Exactly. Yeah. They had no idea.
Well, I think this is what we're pointing to. Oh, good.
I was going to say, it's going to become sort of like the J.D. Power, like the Recurrent brand of the trusted assessment of the vehicle. I mean, and as a used vehicle shopper, and someone who's been in the industry for a while, selling the idea of used EVs to the general public is really important because people aren't sold yet on the used unless they really know about EVs. I get people calling me all the time saying, should I buy an EV? And I'm like, well, how far do you drive? And I'm like, you should buy a used EV. And they're like, really? I'm like, you're a prime candidate for that.
Well, we're talking again. One thing you hit on earlier, I think is important, is just how we've thought about batteries as consumers for a long time. I mean, generationally speaking, if you grew up in the world of batteries becoming a thing, it's like it's in your remote control. You can get a battery-controlled little car, and what does that look like? Your Sony Walkman back in the day was battery-powered. Our understanding of it was, well, these are limited. And the reality of it is what we have with battery technology today is that, like, for example, like straight across from us is the Tesla booth. Inside of those vehicles, it's not a gigantic battery. It's a bunch of these tiny little cells that are put together that make up those big batteries. And the beauty of that design is that we're not stressing a gigantic battery. We're taking the power that's going in and out of those batteries, and we're spreading it across of 4,000 plus little cells. And that really allows for that technology to really be more robust over time. And that's what we've learned.
And wherever I go, I bring data, right? So let me just say, like, couple of maybe two pieces of data here. One is that, while it is true that you will, over the course of time, 8-10 years, you will get a slightly reduced range on your car from when it was new, right? That's the way that all lithium-ion batteries work. However, if you get 90% of the range that it did when it was new after 8 or 10 years, it's not uncommon, right? Battery's fine. And where we are really seeing in our data, after about 2014, 2015, the incidence of a battery failure have been vanishingly low. Basically, the only battery replacements we've seen since then at any scale are when Chevy did their big Bolt recall and replaced everything. Now, that was under warranty.
Yeah.
So, you really have to go and look. It was only the 2011, 2012, a little bit of 2013 where you had some pretty substantial battery replacements because this was the first time that anyone had done this.
That's
before.
over 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. So, I think that essentially at this point, if you're buying a new or a 3 to 5 year old used EV, you really shouldn't be worrying about
You're buying
batteries.
some great technology.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Here's something that maybe, I don't know if you've looked at this, and it would be interesting to understand if my gas car loses efficiency, loses a range or miles per gallon over the time that I own it.
That's a very real thing.
And we don't think about it. Nobody thinks about
Well,
that.
but why do we not think about it? Because we know that even if that gas mileage goes down from 35 to 30, we're not worrying about it too much because the fuel that we're using awaits us everywhere, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I do think that over time, as there's charging infrastructure everywhere, that is the battery at 95% of its original range isn't going to matter. Yeah, isn't going to matter. But I think because everybody has the iPhone and they can go to that battery health number and they can look at it and they want something similar for a used EV, and so that's I think what we're trying to provide.
I have another question about maybe what your company might do is when I was getting started and showing PowerPoints of cars that weren't here and chargers that weren't invented yet, people were asking me what happens to the batteries after their end of life. And car manufacturers were talking about second life batteries, stacking them up, using them for storage. Is that a thing?
So, actually, funny question. So before I started Recurrent, the company I wanted to start was essentially reusing decommissioned EV batteries in stationary grid storage. Good rule of thumb is a battery is good in transportation purposes for 10 to 15 years, and then it's good for stationary energy storage for another 10 to 15 years, is a reasonable rule of thumb. There's going to be exceptions to that, but just because the demands as backup power, it's you're sort of discharging and charging more gently when it's grid storage versus a transportation thing where you have to floor it, right, to get on the freeway. So there's I didn't start that company. I started Recurrent instead because there just weren't anywhere near enough decommissioned batteries to make sense. So I was like, I can start that company in another 10 years from now.
Yeah, that's an opportunity.
After Recurrent. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are some cool startups that are working on that. But just the volume is very, very low.
What I think is cool too about what you're describing is that, and most people don't know this yet, is that batteries as they are designed today, and even 10 years ago, you can take the original raw materials that were in those batteries, reprocess them, and put them right back into a brand new battery. It's this nice cycle of, this stuff doesn't go bad forever. It gets used and can then be reused and reprocessed.
I think that's right. So ideally, and we're nowhere near this yet, but ideally there's like, you got 15 years in a first vehicle, and then repurpose that same cell into grid storage, and then for another 10 years, and then recycle it back into a brand new battery.
When you say you
personally can
personally,
do that?
I will have all the batteries. No, it's the car. It's the idea of car ownership. I'm owning this battery. If you're leasing the car, it's one thing. If you're buying the car, it might be another thing. But let's say you sell it after 5 years or 10 years. Like that ownership of that battery is unknown, I guess, in the first 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years as to where it's going to go and who's going to own it.
I mean, if you think about the way that 12-volt lead-acid batteries work, there is, there's a deposit that you have to pay that basically pays for the recycling of it afterwards. And that's not out of the question. I could imagine that for lithium-ion battery packs as well. But the thing is, the lithium-ion batteries last so much longer than a 12-volt battery does. It's like, I don't know. It's just like you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't really exist yet. So
where the problem exists is in the naysayer media, where
Sure.
you see these articles that say this battery's going into a landfill in 10 years.
Well, so what you're hitting on is a big reason why this space exists, is for people that are shopping and just researching to understand. So as battery technology exists today, number one, what we've clarified and what your company has proven is these things have a long life. Yep. The technology as it stands today, if you're buying a new EV or a used EV, you're going to have basically what you can represent to be 90 to 100% of that range of that battery for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's high level.
High level. Depends on the car, depends on the battery chemistry, the coolant, everything like that. But yeah, absolutely high level, yeah.
So, and then the next step beyond that is showcasing what we're talking about, which is the way that these products work. Oftentimes people think it almost sounds like magic. It's just like, no, that sounds too good to be true. Let me get this straight. You get those mines, you dig up all that stuff, you put it in a battery, you put it in a car, it's in market for 10 to 20 years, and then you just magically take it apart and make a brand new battery again? The answer is, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. You can't do that with a combustion engine. You sure as hell can't do that with oil and gasoline. So the future of energy, as we're using it to drive or energize our homes and then reusing it, it's creating an opportunity for a reduced footprint on all the manufacturing we're doing as it relates to these products. And that is the most important thing, I think, what you're proving out through your company is to showcase that these are not things that have to be replaced like this. They are something that you can rely on for a very long time. So you're doing God's work.
Yeah. I want to leave you with, I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to sort of talk about one absolutely hot tip for the
30 seconds.
EV shopper, right? This is it. So next year is the 3rd year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act, which basically tripled EV lease rates overnight.
Yep.
Okay? So next year, starting January 1st, there is a surge of off-lease EVs coming. 3-year-olds, I don't have to worry about the batteries at all in those things. You can just pop right into one of those. And, with tariffs pushing up the price of newer EVs and newer cars in general, oh my God, that 3-year-old off-lease EV is where you want to be next year. That is an incredible deal.
If you're looking at a brand new one right now, saying maybe the price point is not where we want to be, it might still be out of your price range for a model you like. Yeah. Some of those models have been on the road for 3, 4, 5 years already. Exactly as you're describing, you can get into one of those for half the price of what you may have been thinking.
I think a lot of people who are looking for a used car as their second car have so many more options with used EVs. The range isn't as important. Usually you have a car that drives a little, and then you have the car that could drive to Portland, Maine tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
I love the second car thing. That's like the suburban hybrid, I call it. Like one gas car and one EV in the
suburban
garage.
hybrid.
And I think that's a great entry point. And just and you'll end up naturally, you'll end up doing more and more of your miles on that EV, and the gas car will sit there.
The family will argue over who takes the electric.
100%.
There'll be arguments at the
100%.
dinner table as to who gets the electric car.
So, Scott, thank you so much for coming by. Again, you're a wealth of knowledge. What Recurrent is doing is huge because it's giving transparency to used EV ownership. It's going to be so invaluable moving forward. As you said, in 6 months, going into next year, there's going to be a lot of used EVs hitting the market that can rely on the data from Recurrent to showcase these are quality cars to own. So if you have information, if you have questions and want more information, how do people find Recurrent right now? Where do they go?
Well, you can Google Recurrent. We finally come up above the dictionary definition of the word
Nice.
Recurrent. It's been like a long-standing
The algorithm
thing for
is
us.
on your side.
Or you can type in recurrentauto.com. If you're a shopper, you can come there, just find a bunch of resources. If you're an EV owner, you can come and register your car for free. And then, by the way, the other cool thing about that is when you're ready to sell your car, we've got all your battery data, so you end up selling your car for more.
I will be registering my cars today.
That's great.
2 used cars.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
be doing that today.
Yeah.
So this is the EV Reality Check booth powered by GreenCars.com. We are here at Electrify Expo Seattle, and my favorite thing about this conversation is all three of us, we are in the Pacific Northwest. We are all here. You're in Washington. I mean, you guys are based in Tacoma. You're from Seattle. I live in Portland. The EV industry as it exists, this is a big event that goes nationwide, but so much of what's happening is based here in the Pacific Northwest, including GreenCars.com that powers this booth. So the industry is happening here in Washington, Oregon, and the PNW. I love it. And
Well, I'm the last prediction. I
knew
know
it.
what we're
All
talking.
right.
Last prediction. Washington passes California in EV adoption
Ooh,
rate.
what year,
Big.
though? What year?
That's big.
Within 1 year.
Whoa.
Washington is the cheapest place on a relative basis to own
To
and
drive
operate
a car.
an EV
Yes, to
versus
drive an EV,
California. And we have mild weather.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get too much
And
range
as we
loss.
just learned,
no. Washington
City
is
Light is having a
it's-
time
it's-
of use rate now.
Yeah.
So even cheaper.
Well, you all get to be a part of that number. This is so awesome. Scott, thanks. That is a great premonition. You're like, all of you are going to help us in Washington make sure that happens. So, honest to God, though, if that happens, that's huge. That's massive.
Good talk. Thanks,
Good
Doc.
talk.
Dave.
All
So,
right.
so this time next year, we'll ask about that prediction.
I was going to say, we're bringing you back.
We're taking
We're
down
bringing you
California
back.
and we're taking down
Steak
Colorado.
dinner bet.
Just watch out.